Hi everybody and welcome to the Needham channel's version of Must See TV. It's What's My House Worth? My name is Rob Ticktin. This is Ryan McDonnell. We are realtors with Hawthorn Properties and we are here today. It's a little bit of a deja vu episode, Ryan, if you will, to talk about the month of
March.
The month of March. It's not a deja vu episode because we've already spoken about the month of March, of course. It's a deja vu episode because we just don't have a lot of sales to talk about, right?
We're going to have to dig deep for the second consecutive month, Rob.
So we apologize in advance, but there's going to be a little bit of slow talking, but we have added some content as well, so hopefully it makes for an enjoyable experience for the viewer at home. I guess we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of filler, but hopefully it'll be good filler.
Lots of filler.
Useful filler.
Right. We'll find out what our filler's worth, I guess, when all is said and done. March sales data, let's take a look at the numbers that we speak of, and yeah, there you go. Just one more sale than there was last year. We're in at 10, and that's a low number.
It is. I mean, at least we got to double digits this month, Rob. Single digits last month with 9. But, I mean, last year we had 26 sales in March.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So what does that tell you?
It tells me that you jumped the gun a little bit on the next slide, but the percentages are good.
Yeah, I mean, and we even backing up to the average sale price is good. I mean, we're almost at 1.4 million. That's a big number. Obviously, with only 10 sales, there's the possibility that mix comes into play a little bit more than in other months. But
right. Well, of the 10 sales, 8 of them were 1.175 or higher.
Yeah. Percentages, like you mentioned, are very strong. You know, we're at 99.2% of list and 99% of original list. That's our sales price as a percentage of its original list price, which is obviously fantastic.
Yep.
Average days on market of 49, still very good. These numbers, every one of these numbers is better than looking at February of this year and March of last year. It beats them across the board.
Yep.
With the exception of just the number of sales.
The sheer volume.
Right. So it's not necessarily indicative of, I think, market conditions.
Well, I'll tell you,
inventory.
Yeah. Strangely, the very first slide of the show and the last slide of the show have a lot to do with each other in the sense that we only had 10 sales this month, 9 sales last month, right? And so when we look at the last sale, or the last slide, excuse me, of the show, we're going to look at inventory, and there's definitely a correlation between the two. It comes down to how do you define a hot market? Is it a market where there's a lot of turnover? Because if that's the case, this is not a hot market. If a hot market is defined by, sales prices that are shooting way up, even though there aren't a lot of homes that are, then yes, this is a hot market. Either way, it's an expensive one.
Right.
It's just we're not seeing tons of inventory turnover yet, although that could change as we enter into the spring market.
Yeah. In addition to expensive, it's still very competitive.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's I tend to maybe gravitate towards the demand competitive nature of the market when I'm determining whether a market's hot. You could have a lot of turnover, but there could be a lot of homes sitting for a large period of several days on market.
Yeah.
Right? And so that just turnover in and of itself doesn't necessarily, in my mind, get me to a hot market. I like to see, offers being scribbled on the roof, on the trunk of cars, that kind of thing. I mean, that's a hot market. And I think we still have that. And also, I think there's a lot to come here.
Yeah, agreed.
We just we're just getting out of a Easter, Passover week. I mean, we have the whole spring market is ahead of us.
Demand's not the issue, supply is.
Right.
March home sales. Ryan already kind of spilled the beans a little bit about last month with 26, but there
really
you go.
Shouldn't be jumping ahead to slides.
Not in this month's episode. 10 sales, geesh, combined with just 9 last month. That has me thinking, actually, if there were just 9 in the month before March. In
February.
Thank you. And 10 in March.
That makes 19.
That makes 19.
Yeah.
That's correct. Nice math, Ryan.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at the first quarter.
Wow. Well, we already did 2/3 of it, so why not just round it off?
Perfect.
All right.
You saw where I was going with that, and indeed. So there's a colorful graph for you. So that I think shows what we're talking about, which is there's just not a lot of homes available for sale.
Right.
Because we know demand is certainly no less than it was in 15, 16, 17, but you've said it before, every year as the year unfolds and shakes out, the number of sales in Needham year after year after year is pretty consistent. But it looks like in 2018, the next 9 months, there's some things that are going to need to happen in order to hit that low 320 number of sales for the year.
It's always 336.
336.
But we have some work to do. We are behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see those other years just stacked up against each other because they are so similar.
Yeah.
And they do end at the same point every year.
Yeah, so maybe this is the year
so
where things
will we
change.
be, somewhere around 300? So that's very interesting. and we will certainly keep our eyes on it.
All right. How about average sales price? So we chatted about that. We talked about 10 sales. That can have a big impact on the mix and on the average sales price. So there's nothing wrong with that in terms of being a Needham resident or a seller in this market. But don't get too excited and don't necessarily put the sign in your yard just yet, because that 1398 number is just representative of 10 sales. Anything else before we kind of dip into the individual sales, Ryan?
No, it's just always interesting to see, that looking back at the 8s, seeing it, you have a month of March back in 2013 where the average sale price was in the 8s, and it's just not something we're accustomed to seeing these days.
Yeah, things were much simpler back then. But all right, so how did we do here? Not too bad, considering we haven't gotten any sales yet. Good job. We're going to go in sale by sale. We're going to start low, work our way up, as we often do. Like I said, just 2 sales under that number of 1175, and the first one's in it's in a pretty good location.
Yeah, I mean, this is at one of the bottoms of Bird's Hill, rather. It's at the bottom of Hillcrest, kind of near that intersection of, bear with me, Hillcrest, Falcon, Hillcrest again, Wyoming, Hazleton, and Highgate.
Correct.
Only in Massachusetts or New England will you find roads coming together like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of roads there for sure. Agreed.
So, I mean, this is the epitome of the starter home. 3 beds, 1.5 baths. It's just under 1,700 square feet. Home's a little bit dated. The lot 9584. It's actually 9583 on public record, Rob.
Oh,
there's 1 square foot difference.
You had to point that out, didn't
Well,
you?
I think it's foreshadowing to maybe something that lies ahead.
Oh.
But, so I expect there to be some updating in this home's near future. It may have already begun. But, great location, as mentioned, in Broad Middle School. So this would be your, if you had to draw up a starter home, there it is.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the 3 beds, 1.5 baths, the square footage, everything about it. You talked about when things were, way back in the 8s, 5 years ago. What did this house look like then?
Probably 5s.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, one last home under the $1 million mark before we jump ahead. This one is, it's kind of interesting to compare the next one with the previous one, right? Because 93 Central Ave is a house that is bigger than the one we just looked at, although not that much bigger. This had 2 half baths as compared to the last one that had 1 half bath. They both have 3 beds and 1 full. And this one was beautifully done inside. I mean, they say just move in. They had all caps, and I'm on board with that because it was a nicely finished interior of a house. It was $30,000 more. The difference here, Ryan, was?
It was updated. Central Ave.
Central Ave.
Yeah.
And, also the fact that it was the proximity to I-95.
Yeah, it's right next to 128, but it's on a huge piece of land.
That too.
It's like 30,000 square feet, but it's narrow and deep, so there's not a lot of frontage for any of you who are thinking maybe that was subdividable, which it doesn't appear that it is. The other thing here, we mentioned 2013. Ironically, this home last traded in 2013 before it was updated to the way that it is now, and it did in fact trade in the 5s, at 501 to be exact. So kind of speaks to the point we were just making on Hillcrest. It's close to 128, but it's also close to Pinellas.
That's right. And they do breakfast and lunch.
Yes, they do.
Right.
Yes, they do. And a variety of other household items that you might need.
If you're on a scavenger hunt, it's a place to go.
Yeah.
All right.
There's that.
Anything else on Central?
No, just move in.
No, there's lots of things.
Oh, well, there was one other thing that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay, I'm ready.
I don't know if you noticed in the exclusions. The exclusions were, among other things, all of the owner's personal possessions. I love that one as an exclusion. But also, it mentioned that the swing set is going to be left for the buyers as a gift.
Right.
It's very sentimental, but it's also like, hey, by the way, we don't want the swing set, so we're gonna make it look like we're doing you a favor, but we're leaving it.
Here, take it. No, honestly, it's on us.
We insist.
Right. We wanted it, but we decided, we like you. Right. Yeah.
Right. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that use of the word gift.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is a house that was my deal of the month for a little while. I changed it at the 11th hour. It's 343 High Rock Street.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, the reason
whose deal of the month? Were you on the side of the buyer?
It was my deal of the month for the seller.
Okay.
But the thing that I think pulled me off it, Ryan, was the fact that the house sold in October of 2016 for 1075, right? So, I mean,
Quite a bit of a history before that, though. I don't know if you took a gander at that
yes,
little.
it was priced way too high. But, listen, it's got a lot of space. It does check off a lot of the boxes for people. It's got a lot of space, 4 beds, 2.5 baths. You got more square footage downstairs. It's hard to find that much space in a newer home for under 1.2. So that's why ultimately I said, you know what, maybe it is priced about where it should be. And
Okay.
good for both parties. They struck equilibrium.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's why it wasn't maybe that should be a new.
Right. It's just this is your neutral deal of the month.
Right.
Everybody walked away kind of happy, but kind of like, all right, like more of a satisfied feeling.
Yeah, or maybe we rank our top 3 deals of the month and talk about why 2 of them weren't the ultimate winner.
If we ever have another month of single digits, we'll do that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to have to do. Next up, 149 Harris Avenue, and let's talk about an actual deal of the month.
Speaking of, yes.
Let's hear it.
This house jumped off the page when it came on the market. It's like, wow, this is going to get a ton of attention.
Yep.
Early in the spring market. It's got, on paper, everything you could possibly ask for as far as it's got 4 beds, it's got 3.5 baths, it has an addition, it's been renovated, it's in a great location. I think it checks all of those boxes, but then when you get in there, and you and I both kind of had the same impression that while there's a lot of new, there's a lot of things to like, there's also a lot of old in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got an old HVAC system, you've got old windows, you've got the part of the house that wasn't involved in the addition was largely untouched.
Yep.
You also have a basement that I think worked against the house. It had some carpet down there that really needs to come out. It was very dark and dank. So those kinds of things, when you're walking through it, you're like, all right, while this checks a lot of boxes, and we're paying essentially at the high end of the range from a square footage perspective. Like, you're not going to find too many homes that trade for more than that aren't new, that are at that square footage.
Yep.
But I think you're not done writing checks after you buy that house. You've got some work to do. There's only AC in part of the house. Like, there's just a lot of things when you start to peel the onion back that say, hey, you've got some work to do here.
Right, which might explain why it went under agreement and then it went back on the market before going back under agreement, is maybe the first buyers kind of realized this on their own after getting it under agreement.
Yeah, and whenever we have the deal of the month for the seller, it always the description always comes out very negative. There's a lot to like about this house. I mean, you're still paying almost $1.4 million. You're getting a lot of house to go with that price tag.
And a lot of character and a great location.
Yeah, so that can't be understated. And I don't think it was mispriced necessarily. I mean, clearly, as you pointed out, kind of offline, the demand was clearly there because you had a buyer put it under agreement. That fell through. You had another buyer swoop right in and basically give them asking. So it's or close to. But I just, to me, knowing what I know about how much things cost, to the types of renovations that we're talking about here, where they seem very, we'll do windows, we'll do AC. I mean, you're talking.
It adds up quickly.
Yeah, tens of thousands of dollars in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of my takeaway from 149 Harris, and that's why I think the sellers did very well here.
All right, very good, Ryan. Thanks. You had quite a bit to say about that listing, which is good because we have quite a bit of time. And you also have, I think, quite a bit of knowledge when it comes to this next listing, 31 George Agate Road, because you were involved in this transaction. So let's hear it from, I guess, your perspective.
Okay. I mean, this one I represented the buyers of this house. They're very happy, new to the town. I mean, this is, you're a pretty straightforward deal as far as new construction in town. It's kind of that sweet spot in the 1.4s. The builder did a nice job. They were very pleasant to work with.
Well, it sells for, and also it's interesting to compare it to the house you just talked about.
Yeah.
It's only $40,000 more than 149 Harris.
Right. I think the things that draw you to 149 Harris, you're not going to find at 31 George
and vice
Agate,
versa.
And vice versa.
Right.
So they're different.
They're
different buyers, and that's what makes this whole profession interesting. So the one thing, I mean, this is a big lot. It's 12,000 square feet plus. The one thing I'll maybe put to you, Rob, is and I kind of found it curious. Having so much experience as we do, as many of you know, we do a lot of custom home building. So new construction, renovations, et cetera, but we do a lot of kitchens. Mm-hmm. And would you find it puzzling to see a brand new kitchen, whether it's in a newly renovated home or new construction, that's not on a septic, and that doesn't have a garbage disposal.
That's not on a septic.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's uncommon.
Yeah.
Or puzzling, as you said.
I thought so.
Well, because it's going to come out eventually, right?
Well,
and somebody's going to want it.
I mean, I can't think of anybody that wouldn't want it.
Right.
Again, if you're not on a septic.
Right.
But
and
which
it
this
would
house
be
is not.
it would be a reasonable ask
Right.
or expectation.
Right. So that was the only thing that kind of came out of the whole deal. That was like, all right, well, is it just not in yet? Like, where's the garbage disposal?
Right.
And it was, and the return look was one of bewilderment. Like, well, it can be added. Well, of course it can be added. But so that was the one thing, and I just found it strange. I had not paid enough attention, and I will now, walking through new construction that's on the market, just to look and see.
Right.
Are there any homes that don't have garbage disposal?
Right.
Because I would bet that there are very few.
Yeah, in this town, I would agree.
So that was just one thing that I
All right, there you go.
happened upon.
That's a great little nugget. Nicely done.
Remember, we led this show saying we're going to dig deep.
Yeah, and digging
that-
deep is
that
what
we
we're
are.
doing. We're going to go over to 6 Lee Road. There were no pictures, so I just scribbled a picture for everyone. This one sells for $1,523. As it turns out, the rendering is a different color, Ryan. The house turned out to be
Gray.
beige.
Ah, close.
Yeah, I like that color blue though.
Yeah, they should have gone with it.
Yeah, I would have changed it if I had realized. Anyway, this is do you know Lee Road? Did you know where it was, or did you have to look it up?
I knew approximately where it was. I wouldn't have been able to give you directions there.
Yeah, it's
I
in
would've
between Gould and Webster, back near
Knowing that.
Yes, Noanette. For those who know where Noanette is, but yes, it's in that neighborhood, which is kind of turning over
And I
there.
want to know what was wrong with the net.
Nobody will ever know it.
So this is something I noticed about just about the timeline of this property, Rob. So in the listing sheet it says to be completed November of 2017.
Okay. Do I need to write this down?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Goes under agreement in December of 2017.
That's when they said it would be done.
No, the listing said will be completed November 17.
Oh, okay.
Goes on. Maybe you should have written it down.
No,
goes
I
under
think it said
agreement
December.
Well,
Yep.
we can always roll the tape.
That's
back.
true, but go ahead.
Goes under agreement December
Yeah.
of 17, yet closes in March.
Okay.
So my question is, did it actually get done in time? A.
Yeah.
And did the for whatever reason the buyer want an extended close, March?
Yeah.
B. Or C, was additional work done to the house that got us to this price point? So it was maybe the basement finished,
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there, none of which I can answer.
right?
Right.
So, but yeah, it was just peculiar that if it's done in November and it's under agreement in December, why not close sooner? Why
Well,
wait
then
till-
March?
Yeah, I'm sure the builder wanted to close.
Yeah, I suppose, but I mean, it probably wasn't done. I mean,
That's probably
more
I
often than
think
not, when you have a projected deadline on a listing, you're going to be more apt to be a little bit aggressive with your projections, so you can get somebody who's a little more anxious to get something under agreement. So
Perhaps.
that's my guess.
I'm going with another floor was finished.
Okay.
That's my bet.
All right. Well, we'll never know, but
No, well, one way to find out.
there is only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Next listing is on Dogwood Lane, and I tell you, Dogwood's come a long way. There were actually, so there were 2 pictures on this listing, and what I typically do for the show, Ryan, is I will always take the first picture.
Okay.
But for this one, I took the second one, just because I feel like it's just a little more bold.
Okay.
With the view of the garage specifically, right? This is, I mean, when you see this, don't you think of the large house review, and this would be a picture that they'd be showing?
Yeah, they'd be all over this one.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can't do that anymore.
No, well, not over that garage. No.
No. So with today's new, bylaws, you can only go, instead of 2.5, you can go 1.5 over the
it
garage.
also has to be recessed back. You can't be directly over it like that.
Correct. So it's this might be the last time you ever see a garage quite like this.
Yeah.
It's
so
new.
I got to tell you, this one surprised me. Because
The price?
Well, so this builder bought this property for $600,000.
Yeah.
Which for a 10,000 plus square foot lot in Broadmeadow on a quiet street
is a good number.
On paper is a steal. However, knowing what we know about Dogwood,
Yes.
this property has
Power lines.
3 things going on in its backyard.
Okay.
Giant power lines,
Yeah.
a train,
Yeah.
and the utility easement.
Right.
So knowing all of that, the builder got a price that's price adjusted to reflect all of that, but then turned around and got almost 1.7 on the back end.
Yeah, good for him.
He took a big risk, in my opinion, but it paid off.
Well, it's a little bit less of a risk now that there are some new construction, bigger homes back there.
But even still, they're all on the other side of the street where you don't have the train and the power lines in the backyard.
Yeah, I know, but
and
still.
the easement.
But it is a nice level backyard,
Don't sell
too.
the easement short.
I know, it is a nice level backyard.
It is, but that one surprised me. So I thought at the time that 600 grand, that's probably as much as you could possibly pay for that. But I didn't see them turning around and selling it out for almost 1.7.
All right, so maybe you're runner-up for deal of the month for the
Yeah,
seller.
again, builder took a risk and it paid. So
All right,
congrats.
good for him. So
for him.
the next listing is 793 Great Plain Avenue, and this is one that we've talked about before on this show because it sold in May of 2016.
Sure did.
For $1.603 million. So how about that tidy, quick little turnaround?
But they did some work in there. Kitchen and baths.
I don't know. I mean, did they really have to do that much work? I mean, it showed pretty well in 2016,
Yeah.
I thought.
It did. What was the observation that we made in 2016?
That if you have company over and the driveway is full, there's nowhere to park except for Otis.
Right.
Right.
Right,
For
because
Warren.
it's on the corner of Great Plain and Webster, so there's no street parking. If you're the last one to the party, you got a little bit of a walk.
Oh, which I'm not kidding. I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons that the people who bought it in 2016 are selling in 2018.
Yeah. The other thing, this is that one of the houses that was involved in that movement of homes back in 2011.
They lifted it up
cool.
and put a new foundation underneath it. Very
Which
cool.
It makes for a really lousy basement, though. There's a gazillion lolly columns in that basement.
Yeah, but still, it beats having an old,
True.
fieldstone, musty basement.
Right.
Next up is my deal of the month. Yeah, so finally we get there, and it is 25 Ray Avenue. And Ryan, we've talked about when you have 10 sales, sometimes it can be difficult to come up with a deal of the month. So it's not like there was one that was screaming at me. As I mentioned before, I was kind of back and forth with this one and the one on High Rock. The reason ultimately that I chose 25 Ray is it was a mathematical equation. Okay, it was using numbers, Ryan. So this is my takeaway.
Is eeny meeny? Is that a mathematical equation?
Well, that came down. That was for the tiebreaker.
Okay.
But so for this one, the listing sheet said there were 9,000 square feet. The lot was 9,000 square feet.
Right.
Excuse me. But the lot was it was a little bit smaller than that. So according to public record, it was 8,700 square feet. So if you look at every house ever in the town of Needham to sell on a lot less than 9,000 square feet, this one is the highest selling one ever in Needham by $100,000. The next highest was 319 Hillcrest that sold for $165. So you're talking
without
about
a single bush.
Without a single bush. Well, that's a different. That has to do with the highest selling one with no landscape.
Not one bush.
But so it's a lot of money to spend on a fairly small piece of land, albeit there's a lot of space in the house. But just by virtue of the fact that it sold for that much on a lot under 9,000 square feet, it just by default becomes my deal of the month
and
for
that's
the
a
seller.
Generous massaging of the lot size to get from 8,712 to 9,000.
Yeah.
It's a massaging.
Yeah. It's a deep tissue massage.
Yeah. And in these new bylaws, forget it.
Yeah.
9,000 is a big deal.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to go to the big seller next. That's 65 Sutton Road, and another new construction, and that closes out our 10 sales. This one sold for 1,828, Ryan. I'm guessing it said in the listing sheet it was the first, second, and third floor were finished. When you look at that spread between original list and sale, that tells me that they must have finished the basement. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, and that's my assessment also, Rob. And this one is just taking George Agate maybe by comparison. George Agate right around the corner, 4,000 square feet on 3 levels. Similar size lot, same neighborhood.
Yep.
At 142. And this one's at 1,828. So I mean, that's a big spread. So this was a candidate for me too, as a deal of the month for the seller. I thought this was a really, really nice number. I think as we both mentioned, I think you're likely seeing a basement finished here.
Yeah.
For that sale price. MLS doesn't necessarily reflect those kinds of things.
Right.
But still, I mean, even at 1,799, that's a nice number there.
Sure.
So I think that's a good comp for the spring market ahead. To sign of good things to come.
Yeah.
Let's just get some inventory out there.
All right, speaking of good things to come, let's get to the listing picture of the month. Yeah, it's one of those episodes where we need to come up with some stuff to fill in the last 5 minutes. And so you have not really seen the picture yet. And well, let's take a look. This is the April champion. This is your listed picture of the month. Ryan, what do you see? Describe it. Tell me.
All right, if I had to guess,
Okay.
I would think that this is a house under construction and there's some materials in an unfinished bathroom shower.
Yeah,
Is that what that is?
I don't think that's unfinished.
Oh, you think you think those boxes are using the bathtub?
Maybe. I mean, that's a finished bathroom. Look, you can see the
doorknob.
the niche in there.
Yeah.
And it is tiled everywhere.
Yeah.
It's. I just think it's a.
Are those props?
Well, I'd like to
That's
say.
part of the staging?
I'd like to say it's accidentally focusing on the doorknob, but it's not focusing on
Not
anything.
No, that one slipped in unbeknownst to somebody. But you can't even really do that. Like, how do you slip one in? You have to, the way
Look.
you have to load them, I don't understand.
Well, this is how I work. If I only took one picture of the bathroom and I'm like, oh, this is my picture, I'm just not putting in a picture of the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to see that bathroom when you get there.
Okay, well, next up, another fun segment. We have a viewer question, Ryan.
We sure did.
You mind if I read the question?
No, you go ahead.
Thanks. Here we go. Is there no longer room in Needham for the starter home market? It seems that the starter home in Needham is an endangered species. Are those buyers out of options in Needham? And this last part's my favorite, Ryan. Thank you for your time. I do enjoy this show.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
Me
Patty.
too. Thank you, Patty. So there's your question, Ryan. What do you think? Is it dead?
I don't think it's dead. I just think it's relative. Like this question arises from our discussion last month, but the reality is that the starter home is just shifted. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, the first listing that we covered was 262 Hillcrest, sold in the low 7s.
Yeah.
That's the starter home.
Right.
So the starter home still exists.
It's just
costs
getting more expensive.
Yeah, it just costs more than it did even 5 years ago, and that I think is really the challenge that a lot of people are facing, is that the starter home is a big number, and so it's you can't just assume you're gonna waltz into Needham, and pay 5s anymore. You just can't. So
Or 6s for that matter, because you're going to
just-
end up having to spend more probably
or
for anything that's on in the 6s.
or compromise a lot of the things that may be on your initial wish list, and that's where we see sometimes these buyers that are just so deflated, is because they have this idea of what they want, and they have a budget, and getting those two things to mesh is really, really hard.
And tying back with the theme of our show last month that you mentioned, the starter market hasn't just changed in Needham; it's changed everywhere, right? So,
So the answer to the question, Patty, is the starter home is alive and kicking. It's just expensive.
yeah,
And that's really where we are. And on top of that, I don't know that you can really make an argument for the greater good of the town that that's a negative.
right.
I think it's unfortunate to the people that want to live in Needham and are being squeezed a little bit. And yes, that's certainly something that we can be sympathetic to. But for the nature of the town has been so positive, the effect of the strong real estate market on the town. So.
All right. Anyway, thank you for passing along that question, Patty. We always welcome calls, emails, whether they be questions, really anything.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah. Well. Let's take a look at the market snapshot. Last thing we need to do before we let you out of here. And we talked about a little bit at the beginning. I'll go through it very quickly. We got 38 active single-family listings. That number is small. The average listing price is $1.719 million. That is big. And under agreement is similar to last year. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, Ryan, how would they go about doing that?
You can always call us. We are available at 781-707-6564.
Yep.
Email us, rob.ryan@hawthornre.com.
Yep.
And you can follow us on Twitter. That handle is Hawthorn_WMHW.
Thanks for joining us,
You're welcome.
and we'll see you again very soon.